Race for Glory, a.k.a.Audi vs Lancia, is available on demand in most of the countries. And since I know a little bit about motorsport, I decided to check how many factual errors they did in the movie. Let's go! During the initial scenes, it's evident that the main character, Fiorio, is poorly portrayed. When we look at the almost any interview with Cesare, we see that he is a very specific and precise individual who knows what he wants to say and has control over the conversation, even in fresh materials when he's already in his 80s. This is a complete contrast to the character on the screen, who appears absent, lost in his own thoughts, and at times unsure what to say. In the opening interview of the film, the journalist claims that the rallies were the most popular sport on TV. This isn't accurate, especially even now rallies are challenging to broadcast on television, and additionally, in '82 there was a FIFA World Cup. Regarding the Oberbayer, it doesn't indicate the location of the Audi test track because it's a German name for a region. It's like saying that the test center is in Texas or in Essex. This is an error because for the Lancia headquarters we got the city name, Turin. The film disregard for the timeline is astonishing. We receive information that it's January '83, Audi is testing the Quattro. Okay, this is how it probably looked, but Lancia doesn't even have a car project or the drivers yet. Fiorio goes to the Walters Rail house to persuade him to sing for Lancia, and we are certainly aren't in the winter, because primo, he wouldn't drive there, and secundo, there wouldn't be any coniferous trees. Walter stands by a beehive, caring for the bees, and offers Fiorio a honey, which is not collected during the winter. The name Lancia 037 didn't come from a track record. It is way less romantic. 037 was a simply project number during the car development. Each car has its own internal number or name. In this case, however, Lancia decided not to assign a new commercial name. Continuing with the time issues, Lancia 037 wasn't introduced in 1983. The car had already participated in selected rallies in '82, but it didn't win anything. Lancia simply improved the project for the '83 season. In the scene where Fiorio is lying to the people from the FIA by claiming to have 200 road cars, there's an error. The situation indeed happened almost exactly as shown, but in the film the road model used is Lancia Monte Carlo, which was on the market since '75. The Lancia 037 had its own road version, and that's where was the issue of producing 200 road cars on time for homologation. This was already visible on the trailer, but Monte Carlo wasn't filmed during the winter. While it can be quite sunny and warm there even in January, it won't be as green as it's in the movie. This scene from the Monte Carlo rally, I mean, what he is doing, he is neither going sideways or there aren't any chicane or the barriers. The conversation about Lancia not going to Sweden is overdramatic. In 1983 there was a distinction between rounds counted for the driver and for the Constructors' Championship. Drivers competed in all 12 rallies at the time, but the teams only in 10. Sweden was one of the rallies insignificant for the teams, so Lancia didn't suffer any loss for not participating in that rally. Jane McCoy is fictional character, also her father Stuart, who died during a rally. Therefore, all storylines related to her are likely fictional. The stop to buy honey during the Acropolis rally is at least implausible. It's hard to find specific information about Walter Rail's private life, but if he is truly a bee enthusiast as portrayed in the film, he could have arranged a visit with a Greek beekeeper after the rally instead of making an unnecessary stop and risking being late for the time control, which is very important in rallies. The following scene with rally cars racing wheel to wheel is at least amusing. However, firstly, it's unclear whether it occurred in reality or not, although I wouldn't be surprised if the gentleman got carried away. This scene earned its place on the error list due to the way it's executed. In reality, it wouldn't look like this, and cars wouldn't drive side by side. Instead, Audi would block and keep Lancia behind until a point where overtaking would occur, similar to Formula 1. Additionally, we have silly co-driver comments that fast driving being crazy all of a sudden and can lead to a tire puncture. Also, the sound editing of engines uncovers the Hollywood part of the movie and intentional keeping of cars side by side at decidedly non-rally speeds. Earlier I mentioned that they over-dramatized absence in Sweden. It's even more amusing if you notice minutes later that they selectively choose which rallies they discuss and which they don't. There's not a single word about Safari's rally absence, but then we have Greece, where there's only a scene of that silly row section, not even half a word about Lancia winning that rally. Later they completely forgot about New Zealand and another victory for Lancia, as well as Argentina, which went for Audi. Driver Udo Kurt is also a fictional character. Therefore, his accident during the rally Finland didn't happen, thus the entire personal storyline associated with him also didn't take place, certainly not in the manner depicted. Varterel didn't have a bearing failure during the Sanremo rally. During that rally, Lancia used team orders to ensure that Marco Allen would win. Roll even received a penalty for late start, supposedly on Lancia's orders, and had a compression issues. However, no one took out the parts from other cars. In the interview years later, he focused more on receiving the penalty than on the technical issue. Adartico Vudafieri, mentioned in that scene, indeed did not finish the Sanremo rally. However, it was on his own mistake, after an accident on a special stage number 51. The argument with the chief mechanic could not have taken place, especially since Vudafieri wasn't even close to the podium in overall classification, as it's shown in the film. And the cherry on top, at the beginning of the scene, there's a talk about bearing issue, which later switches to bushing issue. I hope that this is just translation error and not mistake in the dialogues. The scene where Rel pushes to reach the time control and the co-driver receives a stamp just before 12:45 is incorrect. At the time control, crew must enter after the specified time. Therefore, the crew could appear there from 20:45:00 seconds to 20:45:59 seconds. Technically, they were too early, and in the most of the rallies around the world, there would be a penalty for that. In this scene, we got shots from the start ceremony and information that we are before penultimate stage of the rally. It's very unlikely, because indeed, breaks are sometimes made for the fans in attractive places. However, firstly, these breaks occurs between legs of the rally, not between the stages, and usually there is no starting ramp during them. The information transmitted from a helicopter to the base also did not happen this way. Helis were in use in factory teams, but were not able to monitor real-time difference during the stage. The scene where Rel lets teammate pass is also incorrect. As I mentioned earlier, it didn't take place due to a penalty, and additionally, it would look very different. One of them would simply stop on a road section between the stage. The crew would incur appropriate delay at the time control, for which they would receive penalty sufficient for changing position. At the climactic moment of Lancia's victory, we have it presented as if the finish line was right next to the service area and just before the starting ramp. Well, that's rather unlikely. In rallies in each section there is a finish line where the time counts, then there is a stop point where co-driver handles the paperwork. After that, there is a road section to the next stage or to the finish ceremony where nobody rushes but gracefully drives onto the ramp. The film suggests that Sanremo was the season finale, which is untrue because there were still 2 rallies left. And Hannu Mikkola is shown as the loser, which is not true, especially since the driver's crown went to his hands.